Ma'am, we are good to go. Participants are joining. We just
very nice.
Begin.
Yes, let me just
let me ask my anchor to begin the session.
Yes, I'm just trying to. I will start my video as well, so you see me.
Thank you.
Okay. Let me move this. Hello, nice to meet you. So it's a great pleasure. Thank you so much for the invitation that I can speak at your conference. I was invited. Yes, hello. I was invited by Professor by Dr. Livison, whom I have never met before, but it's very interesting due to COVID-19. We meet all these wonderful people online all of a sudden, which is very nice. I'm also particularly happy because I am speaking to a conference organized in Kerala, and I would just like to mention that I have very fond memories. It was the last vacation I had with my family. We went for 2 weeks to visit your lovely country. It's very beautiful. Obviously, we were only tourists and we only saw the touristy things. I really enjoyed it. It was very nice.
You have been to Munnar, our wonderful, the wonderful place called Munnar. You have been to that
Yes,
place.
I've been to Munnar. Yes, we were in Cochin, in Munnar, in Peria, in where were we? At the lake in you know, the inland lake. We did a lot of things. It was very nice. We really enjoyed it.
We officially begin, ma'am.
Yes, I will begin. Okay, let me.
No, ma'am. So we have the introduction of the speaker.
Yeah, ma'am.
So you just.
Okay, go ahead, please.
Yeah. Okay. Good afternoon, ma'am. I think it was such a perfect performance in the beginning itself. I like it very much, ma'am. I think you know she's a lady of a strong mindset. Strong lady. From their view, we can understand it, right? Yes, her name is Dr. Bettina Lynda Bastian, Associate Professor of Entrepreneur and Innovations at Holy Spirit University, Kaslik, Lebanon. Yeah, as we all see her face, such a beautiful lady and such a mindset, a strong mindset lady. So I'm very happy to invite her and to share more about her. I would like to welcome the lecturer of St. Aloysius College, REBFIC Krishna Kumar, to the screen. Ma'am, please.
Good afternoon to all the dignitaries, guests, and delegates with a great joy. I feel privileged to extend my warm welcome to all presented here for this virtual international conference conducted by Department of Commerce, St. Aloysius College, Elthuruth, Thrissur. Let's move into the important session of this conference, which is the first technical session on the topic Entrepreneurship for Sustainability. We feel honored to have with us the honorable guest. You have made of us proud of your distinguished works. She completed her Doctorate Sciences in Corporate Strategy, Postgraduate Master in Energy Science, Master in Political Science. She is a professor and an amazing writer. She is the editor-in-chief for Arabic Economic Business Journal, head of postgraduate program and research at Business School. Her works in literary area is remarkable one. Her latest published articles are Hegemonic Conceptualizations of Empowerment in Entrepreneurship and the Suitability for Collective Conduct, Administrative Sciences, the Role of Multi-Actor Engagement for Women's Empowerment and Entrepreneurship in Kerala, India, Administrative Sciences, and one of her upcoming work is Investigating Women Empowerment in Light of COVID-19 Challenges. She was the recipient of the City Foundation Grant Targeting Women Entrepreneur 2014 for the case study Women Entrepreneurs in the Middle East, and also finalist in 2015 EFMD case writing competition. She is always in the front when it comes to helping the needy. She acts as a mentor and member for different communities and academic professions. She is an inspiration to many. We are proud to have a guest like her today. I feel extremely honored to introduce Dr. Bettina Lynda Bastian, Associate Professor of Entrepreneurship and Innovation, Holy Spirit University, Kaslik, Lebanon.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for your kind words. I hope you can all hear me. I will try to make this a bit bigger. Can I do something so I don't see this one? Yes, very good. I hope all is clear. Thank you again for your warm words and for the invitation. It's a great pleasure, a great honor to speak at your conference, your convention. And I am most honored also to represent my own university, USEK, University of the Holy Spirit in Kaslik. Let me start. Dr. Libison, he gave me the freedom to talk about whatever I would like to talk about related to entrepreneurship. So I thought, as I am very familiar with entrepreneurship, women's entrepreneurship, and also very fond of women's entrepreneurship and promoting the venturing of women, I would like to give you an overview of a women's entrepreneurship we have currently, and the research debates we have there, and what would be future perspectives, future topics. I hope I will be able to finish this in 15 minutes, so we will have ample opportunity to discuss. And without further ado, I would start. So I will first introduce my talk with an overview of what we know about gender and entrepreneurship based on the Global Entrepreneurship Monitor. I will also discuss a little bit the current situation of women's entrepreneurship worldwide. And after this, I will tie the current research debates we have, the challenges and the opportunities we see in research about this topic, which might also be something very interesting for a lot of researchers at in your network, at your university, maybe men and women. It's not, you're not obliged to be a woman to do research on women's entrepreneurship, of course. So let me try to move this a little bit further up so you can see better. What are the reasons why we actually care in the first place about the topic? Because we could say, okay, entrepreneurship is entrepreneurship. And yes, but we care because there is something about the inclusiveness of societies, of economies, which has an important impact on economic growth, social growth, and on a lot of factors like poverty reduction, health, etc., where it is very important that we are inclusive to all members of society, obviously to the 50% female. So we have ample empirical research that shows the contribution of women in the workforce and the contribution of entrepreneurship, entrepreneurial women leads to higher growth, higher economic growth, poverty reduction, etc. So here I give you only two: the World Economic Forum. There is also, they publish frequent reports on women entrepreneurship, also the World Bank. I'm just citing here the one from 2018. There are specialized reports on women entrepreneurship every 2 to 3 years by the World Bank. But what you can see, for example, only for the United States, although I'm not a big fan to cite the United States, but I thought it was a nice number to see. Women-owned firms are growing at more than double the rate of all other firms, and they contribute nearly 3 trillion to the economy, and they are directly responsible for 23 million jobs. In developing countries, female entrepreneurship is also increasing. There are about 8 million to 10 million formal in the formal economy, small and medium-sized enterprises with at least one female owner. So what we can see is that this is really something that is very important. Let me change. Also from the perspective of the UN, the United Nations, and the sustainability goals that we have as nations developed together, and we hope to aspire, we aspire to achieve in the future. So gender equality is a goal in itself, as you can see here, goal 5. Gender equality is considered an important antecedent to many other goals, as in poverty reduction, hunger reduction, healthcare, etc. So it's an important element, and the UN voiced many times and has identified many times women's entrepreneurship as an important tool to achieve gender equality and to contribute not just to the goal 5, but to all goals in this respect. So what do we know about women's entrepreneurship? I draw on the Global Entrepreneurship Monitor. Let me quickly explain to those of you who are not familiar maybe with it. The Global Entrepreneurship Monitor is to date the only, let's say, source we have with coherent data for many, many countries in the world about entrepreneurship intentions, entrepreneurship activities, entrepreneurship behavior, as they ask. In every country, they ask numerous entrepreneurs, a representative group of entrepreneurs or of people about their entrepreneurial activities or intentions, etc. They also ask experts, that's a different survey they do, about the entrepreneurial environment, the ecosystem. Is the environment something that is in favor for entrepreneurship or not? This is the Global Entrepreneurship Monitor. I think it was started about 20 years ago by big colleges, among them the Imperial College and the Babson College, which is very famous for entrepreneurship research and teaching. This Global Entrepreneurship Monitor is referring to entrepreneurship general, but obviously they have a lot of information because also to show the differences between male and female. Let me show you 2 graphs. This one is the first one, which is the total early stage entrepreneurial activity, which we call T. Differentiated by gender, you can see the women in orange, the men in blue, and the percentages. What we can see actually from this is that the majority, in the majority of countries in the Global Entrepreneurship Monitor, men are more likely to be entrepreneurial and to start businesses than women. In some economies, we see that there are more women. So the highest levels of female entrepreneurship is in the Middle East and in Africa, with just over half of adult women in Angola and more than a third in Togo starting or running a new business. The lowest rate of female entrepreneurship activities can be found, and you would be interested to hear this, in Italy, in Poland, and in your country, India. That is the recent result, the Global Entrepreneurship Monitor from 2021, which refers to the data the year before, the 12 months before. It was just published a month ago. And you can, so what you can see here is these different levels, and you can see that entrepreneurship worldwide is in tendency is an activity that men tend to do more than women. Yeah, I want to show you the second graph, which is very interesting too. Unfortunately, I have to move this here. Sorry. So this gives you the relative gender gap between men and women. So it is calculated by dividing the female activity rate by the male activity rate. What does it show you? When we look at the relative gender gap, there are 6 economies, which I have highlighted with the flashes, in which the level of female entrepreneurship exceeds the male rate. All are from Central and East Asia or the Middle East and Africa. The lowest ratios of female to male entrepreneurship are the ratios in terms of gender gap are Italy, India, and Egypt. So, and each of these has approximately 3 men starting or running a new enterprise for every woman doing so. Yeah, so this is an interesting thing. So even if we sometimes have high entrepreneurship rates, like in Lebanon, we have high entrepreneurship rates in the society, and yet a very big gender gap, because compared to men, women tend to still have less entrepreneurship. Globally, I would just like to, it's not in this graph, but I would just like to give you this information. The rate for women is 10.2%, approximately 3/4 of that seen for men. Low-income countries show the highest rates of women's early-stage entrepreneurship, and they also show the lowest gender gap in tendency. We will find the highest T rates in sub-Saharan Africa with 22% nearly, and in Latin America with 17%. When we come to entrepreneurial intentions, meaning does somebody think about starting a business or becoming entrepreneurial? Again, the gap for entrepreneurial intentions is closest to parity between men and women in low-income countries, and highest in middle-income countries and in high-income countries. It's interesting to debate this maybe later if you like to. The established businesses, which GEM defines as businesses that have been in business at least 42 months, there we also have the highest rate in Africa, in sub-Saharan Africa, and in Asia. The lowest rates we find in the Middle East and North Africa, and in Europe. And something positive, the discontinuance, let's say women started businesses and then stopping the business, or men starting businesses and then stopping the business for whatever reason, the percentage is lower for women than for men. Let me share with you a little bit the demographics. If we look at, from what I learned from the Global Entrepreneurship Monitor, if we look at of course, they're all very diverse, but if we can summarize the one woman that makes out an entrepreneur, then in many countries, what we know is she is more likely to offer innovative products compared with a man in this country. The lady is typically between 25 and 44 years old. There are obviously people that are younger or older, but this is sort of the average. She is 10% less likely than a man to be deterred by entrepreneurship for fear of failure, because she might not succeed. Only she has much less expectations as to the growth of her business. So she has only 1/5 of expectations compared to the man that her business is going to grow. Many of these businesses, 26%, the lady has international relations, international business. Maybe she exports or she imports or she works with companies abroad. She has a certain level of education, but not too high. So she's not necessarily somebody who is a graduate from university, because what the numbers show is that then women tend to be less active in entrepreneurship in the world. She sees entrepreneurship as a reputable and high status position, and job position gives her also high status in her community societies. And we see a certain genderization, if you want to, a bias, not bias, a certain gendered segmentation of where women are active. So 53% are in fact active in wholesale and retail, and most women are active in government-related services, healthcare, education, or social services in the world. Let me tell you a little bit about what we think about women's entrepreneurship in research. So the basic assumption in research, in traditional, or let's say in the conventional non-gender concerned research about entrepreneurship, is that a key definition is opportunity, being able to see an opportunity, recognize an opportunity, and exploit the opportunity is a core element of what makes out an entrepreneur. So the assumptions when we were in the early stages were, okay, women and men, yes, they can both be entrepreneurs, yes. And so why are women less likely to be entrepreneurs than men? The idea was, yeah, Well, maybe they have less education, less access to resources, etc. So what we have to do in the beginning was we were focusing very much on the woman. We have to do something about the woman to enable her to get to the level of the man, to become equally capable to become an entrepreneur. That was sort of the initial things, if you want to, when we started talking about it. Now there's some criticism about it, and I don't want to go into all details of what we do in entrepreneurship research, women's entrepreneurship research. I will focus on a few seminal papers very quickly that will give you an overview where we are currently in the state of research. So there has been some criticism regarding how we viewed entrepreneurship, especially from the liberal feminist perspective, looking at, okay, it's not just the woman, we also have to take into consideration the environment, you know, the access to capital, legal issues, cultural issues, issues that women have been impeded from accessing entrepreneurship. So an example is the OECD 2018 showing that women have much more difficulties to access finances, to get money to fund their businesses, to fund anything, but especially in this case, to fund their businesses. Why? Because they have difficulties in terms of the conditions, collateral requirements. They might not have properties that they could put as guarantee. They have lower levels of experiences maybe in the workforce, which has a bad evaluation. Also, there are gender biased credit scores. It has a lot of, even with AI, we have this now. Anyway, and the IFC, for example, noting in a recent report that we have in Lebanon, where I am active, we have 30% of businesses that are run by women, but they only get 3% of bank loans. So it's an example how, you know, it's not related to the individual, but there's something in the environment we should pay attention to. So let me draw on the first seminal article. It's by Helena Ahl. That's the lady you can see there. It's a Swedish lady. And she criticized three main things in a seminal article in 2006. That was the first time that we had a special issue in entrepreneurship, a theory and praxis about entrepreneurship and women and gender, right? So she said the first thing that I realized is that entrepreneurship research focuses too much on financial performance and economic growth. There are many other things, and I'm sure most of you are aware of this. People are entrepreneurial and they're not driven by profit. They might be driven by social engagement. They might not even have their own companies. They might be entrepreneurial within, intrapreneurial within other companies or organizations, in churches, in NGOs, in schools. You find very entrepreneurial people. So entrepreneurship is not just an economic motive, but we also have to look at something that is important, especially for a lot of women, which is social change and social development. So the second thing she was criticizing, which has had a big impact on us, is that the entrepreneurship research that we have predominantly in the world, where does it come from? It comes from the North. I say the North, I'm from the North, but it comes from the US and it comes from Europe. These are individualist societies. And it has an individualist orientation. If you look at the entrepreneurship orientations that have been defined, risk-taking, competitiveness, proactivity, there are 5, I forgot the rest, but they're all very, something, aggressiveness. They put aggressiveness in it. Like if I tell most women, do you feel aggressive? They cannot associate with this. And I'm sure many cultures cannot associate with it because they collectivist cultures. So she was actually talking about we have to look at the context, historical variables, and we have to address environments, gendered environments, different cultures, and the power structures within these environments. We can't just say, okay, I give an education to a woman and now that's it, she's going to be an entrepreneur. If she is in a context which has certain of these structures. And the last thing, she was criticizing the epistemology and the ontology as being positivist and objectivist, having an objectivist stance, presuming there is something male and female in the world, which, yeah, there's something male and female, but if we as researchers start off on this, we are searching for things, and we're bound to perpetuate maybe biases we're not aware of, that we have them in our mindset, and we introduce them into our research. Out of this research of Helen al, we have, for example, there's a lot, but I'm just talking about Kallas, Smirtsnik, and Born in 2009. They were introducing entrepreneuring as a fundamental process to social change. Now, there's also another paper, for those of you interested, by Rimdova, Barry, and Ketchen, which is the emancipatory element of entrepreneurship. Human beings also become entrepreneurial because they want to emancipate themselves, or they want to have certain autonomies. These are valid arguments for entrepreneurship, why people are driven into entrepreneurship. However, this one that I'm referring to now as a process of social change, again, they would say that traditional perspectives on entrepreneurship, they reproduce to a certain extent specific notions we have of economy. Not every country in the world has the same vision of a free economy like Silicon Valley, or like, I don't know, Great Britain or France. Yes, that doesn't make us unfree. It doesn't make us against markets or something, but we might have different understandings. Even in Germany, we have different understandings of the market economy than in the United States. And so we have to be very, very careful about it. We have to be careful about environments that are gendered. We have to be careful about entrepreneurship knowledge that is gendered. That has, and so in this one also something that is very interesting, and it probably you are familiar with it, the transnationality of female entrepreneurship. So what do we do? Most poor people in the world are female. There are also very poor people that are male, but most of us are female that are poor. So then we have these ideas, how should we invest into these females? And we come out with these microfinance, micro enterprises, micro this and that. We apply the same pattern to everybody in the same way. And we wonder, why doesn't it work everywhere in the same way? And this is something where, in fact, we don't address necessarily, let's say, gender inequalities or issues related to the environment. I cannot go and tell a woman who is from a collectivist society, well, you know what, you have to just break free from your family and, just go somewhere else and break free. Nobody's going to do this. Nobody's going to, not the men, not the women. You're not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. So this is bound to fail. So there is a very, very important element of entrepreneurship that has to be adapted, contextualized for social change as well. Finally, we have, as you remember, Dr. Ahl, she was referring to, we have to pay attention to the gendered environments. We have to pay attention to, the individualist, the individualist connotation of our research. It's wrong. And women per se, even if you go into individualist societies, women are much more involved, if you think about it, they are involved in childcare. They are involved in caring about family members, etc. A recent study by Oxfam this year came out, and it showed that women generate $10 trillion every year in the world of unpaid labor. Unpaid labor we perform for our families. For my mother, I care for my children, I care for the church I go to, and I do work. Unpaid labor, that is higher revenue than the 50 largest companies in the Fortune 500 earn. This is unpaid labor. And Brush, De Bruin, Welter, these are one American, one lady from New Zealand, one lady from Germany. They developed a gender-aware framework, which extended sort of what we knew from entrepreneurship. In entrepreneurship, the traditional building blocks of entrepreneurship is access to market, access to finance, and human capital. These are the traditional building blocks. And they said, well, you know what? I may have the traditional building blocks to do all this, but I might have to care for my mom who is sick, or I have to care for more family members, or I have children. All this, we also have to take into consideration. This is the reality of 50% of us. It's not taken in consideration in conventional logic, but we have to take this into consideration to really evaluate what do women need to succeed and to evaluate their performance. Then, if you remember the epistemology, the approach, what is our understanding? What are our approaches to research? And what is our understanding of what is there? The ontology of things, right? It's socially constructed. Social constructed concepts of man and women and man and women's entrepreneurship. If I ask my students, please think about 5 entrepreneurs that come to your mind. 99% of them will tell me Steve Jobs, I don't know, tell me Elon Musk, and they tell me all men. There are women too. We don't see women. We see women, entrepreneurship, as you can see here, the anatomy of an entrepreneur. This is like a page in a journal. It's a man, right? Why is it a man? Why is it a man? It's a white man, obviously, but men are the norm. And women are understood in literature as the other, the deviation to the norm, which isn't true. We overlook women in tech. There are lots of women in tech. We tend to think that men are all technology entrepreneurs. The majority of men are in businesses like, you know, retailing, whatever, social businesses. They do handcraft. The majority of men is not in high tech either, right? We see women as carers. Women are not innovative, women are less inclined to risk-taking. There's not really ample empirical research about this. We overestimate certain elements of male entrepreneurship. So from this again, the social constructivist perspective, and there's lots of research that goes into this, is looking at how gender is done. That's what Al also was referring to. You know, it's not like gender per se is in a certain way, but how do we understand it, and then we interpret it as researchers? And we have to be very careful. We have to be very careful about it. When I come to this, and I just want to show you this a final slide, it's referring to a research I did with my dear colleague Yusuf Sidani, and we looked at literature that was published about gender and entrepreneurship in the Middle East and North African region. And so we looked at, we grouped this research, and we found that basically research is concerned with macro factors. Here, normative institutions, it is concerned with the culture, with stereotype, with traditions, patriarchal traditions, etc., with religion and Islam, since Islam is the predominant religion in the region, with the government, the institutional, political institutional environment. We could see that there is a lot of research concerned with micro factors, basically the motivation of women, the consideration, how competent are they, personal traits of women, and with meso factors, which is referring to what are working conditions of women. You know, how are they considered? Like in Lebanon, for example, only 24% of women are in the labor market. They face a lot of discrimination in the labor market, a lot of stereotyping. So that pushes many women into entrepreneurship, into freelance activities. You know, so this is where we are. We look at, if you look at the papers that I was introducing, we are in social constructivism. We look at gendered environments. We look at the epistemologies. We look at entrepreneurship on different levels of societies, and we try more and more to give voice to countries that are not individualist, that are not the typical northern countries, but countries and contexts with people that have different experiences and can contribute to the debate. I think with this, I just want to say one more slide and that's it. What are the current debates and the future debates? What could be something interesting for you also to look at for your own research? We have to think about the assumptions underpinning entrepreneurship. What do we take for granted? What do we think is our knowledge? We take for granted neoliberalism. What I was saying, a certain idea of how we do business, how we do markets, how markets are supposed to work. Is entrepreneurship always good for women? Honestly, I'm looking now at COVID-19. I have 4 children. They all adult now. The youngest one is 19 and the oldest one is 20 now. So luckily they're adults and they look after themselves. But if I was a young lady now with 4 children and COVID-19 and I would rather not go into entrepreneurship because hell, it's uncertain. I have less benefits being in a country like Germany. I have no pension. I have nothing that secures me, nothing. So we really have to ask, is it always good for women? What can we do so that women can combine this entrepreneurial experiences even with their realities? We have certain assumptions about the normative family, work-life balance, and they're different. They're different from region to region and religion and culture. And, we have to ask, what role do they play? Then a very important thing, I think you have to play a very, very important role in this. We're still in the decolonizing context. We're still in debates which are very colonized. There is a nice book by Hamid Dabashi. It's called Can Non-Europeans Think? Because the discourses, international discourses, also in entrepreneurship, they dominated literally by what we know from the North. Why is this more relevant? No, it's not. There has to be more voice given to experiences, as I said, from other contexts. Then there are new topics like global warming, stewardship for the nature, entrepreneurship in conflict. We have a lot of research now, it's beginning, research on refugee entrepreneurship. These are very upcoming topics. And finally, we have to think maybe about different methodologies, not just always the semi-structured interviews or the survey or something, but maybe there are more creative ways to find out more in depth what is going on, life histories, video diaries, ethnographic data, etc. With this, I want to finish my small discourse over the entrepreneurship and women let's say situation and the teaching, the research that we currently have, and I'm open for a discussion. Thank you so much.
Thank you for the energetic presentation and the passion you have for women entrepreneurship and the issues related to it. You have presented it well, and in fact, most of our students are girl students. I am sure they got it into their mind and they will have serious discussions about it. And as you said, we will go for interaction. We will take some questions if some of them are. I'm sure there will be questions.
Dr. Libison, let me just get my headphones because I hear you a little bit far away. Just a second.
Sure.
Thank you. I'm sorry, but there is it's a bit difficult to hear, so it's easier with the headphones. Okay, please go ahead.
Yeah. So let's wait for the questions. I am sure there will be questions because you provoke them with thoughts. Right. Yeah, just see. So the floor is open for interaction, question answer session. So
how many of you are doing women's entrepreneurship? Is anybody interested in women's entrepreneurship?
Yeah, let's wait for the response from the audience. So is there any?
There is one person, Ijo Jose, I think I see, raising a hand.
Yeah, someone is Rettina Nelson is asking.
Ma'am, what do you think is the biggest struggle for women to be an entrepreneur? Can you hear me? Yes, I think you can hear me, right? I think the biggest struggle, seriously, I think it is, in my opinion, to combine sort of the expectations women have with regards to family obligations, etc. What is their role in society? And so I speak now for the Middle East and particularly for Lebanon. And so we have a lot of talented ladies from all faiths and all backgrounds, right? And I think it is very challenging for them to combine sort of the expectations of their families who would like them to study or have a good education and but then marry somebody, for example. Or another, it's not always like this. It's also some families are very supportive. In fact, something that we found in these contexts, if women have no support from the family, it's extremely difficult for them to be successful in anything. So the women who are supported, they tend to be also more entrepreneurial, but still they have their family members, they have their children, they have other obligations. So you're not as free and unconstrained to attend all the meetings, you know, to be present when it's necessary. So it's much more demanding on your time. So I think this is a big struggle for women entrepreneurs. And this is also a reason, in my opinion, why we have a lot of women in the North, in countries like Germany, that they don't become entrepreneurs because they think, okay, for me, it's better. I do a good job. I get a wage. I can work half-time. I can work full-time. I will acquire social security, etc. And I am able to have a family. So I think this is really a big consideration for a lot of women, in my opinion.
We have a couple of more questions. One question is the status of women entrepreneurship in Germany. Could you speak something about it? Yeah.
Honestly, I cannot say much about it. I know that in Germany, if I look at my numbers, it is rather low. So women, generally entrepreneurship is not such a, Germany is not a country among the most entrepreneurial countries in the world. So the majority of people would go for jobs, employment situations, men and women. The way entrepreneurship is now taught in Germany is the same like in India. It's relatively, we had a lot of family business. We have had, and the majority of businesses in Germany are family businesses. But I don't think they would explain their situation, although they're entrepreneurial, but they don't have the same notion like startups and startup methodology. And so it's a very different, more traditional approach when it comes to entrepreneurship. However, I cannot say much about women's entrepreneurship in Germany because I am not in Germany. I'm most of the time in the Middle East and in the UAE. And so I also work on the Middle East and the UAE. So I'm not so familiar with the German numbers and why. Then I have why female entrepreneurship is important according to India. What do you mean? Why is it important?
This is a question from one of our students. He might be trying to ask you, how do you see women entrepreneurship in the Indian context? How is it going to contribute? Something like
that. Yes, I do think that, okay, there are many, so the idea, what I said in the beginning, entrepreneurship of men and women, but also of women, is important to contribute to growth. I mean, women as men, we have ideas, we have creative ideas, we want to realize these ideas and bring them to the market or solve a problem. A lot of ladies are going into social entrepreneurship, not only, but a lot. So there is a lot of value in having people who want to do entrepreneurship, whether they are men or women, to be able to do so, because there is a contribution to our economies. independent whether India or Germany or Lebanon or the UAE or so. But also I think that there is an opportunity. I did work with colleagues of yours on Kerala and on Kudumbashri. It's a big, I mean, you know better than me. I was very impressed. It's a big program using also entrepreneurship and women entrepreneurship in rural areas, not just, but in rural areas, to help these women to establish small businesses, to be able to work together, to have their own networks, etc. So I think there's also an important element to allow women to be empowered in society. Empowered, obviously, within the context that they are, not empowered as to what I think in Germany should be empowered, but empowered within what they experience as empowerment, being maybe part of a community, contributing to this community, being part, giving back to the community, helping the families, etc., helping themselves, helping their daughters and their sons to have a good education, etc. This is, and maybe have also a certain level of freedom for themselves to meet with their friends. Yeah, this is also a form of empowerment we should not underestimate. So I think, yes, there is an important role to be played in all economies, not just in India, for women to be involved, having an inclusive economy. I'm just, in India, chance of entrepreneurs and women is comparatively less than other countries. How can we improve it? Yeah. As a first, and can you please expand about what are the challenges faced by women entrepreneurs? I did before, but let me just think about India. How can we improve it? I do think that maybe this is, I would have to ask you, what do you think are the reasons that India is so low in terms of entrepreneurship rates of men and women? It could be similar, like I said, for Lebanon. I don't know. I think that it might be also cultural, traditional reasons. What do we think what is women's role in society, women's role in the family, etc. It could also be that it could be the reason it's very difficult for women to combine, again, family and entrepreneurship roles. So I don't know. Maybe you can explain to me what you think are the possibilities. What are the reasons in India that you have low entrepreneurship roles? And then another thing I would probably caution against. India is a huge, big country. So you might have very different outcomes in Gujarat or compared to Kerala or to Mumbai or something, right? I don't know. There might be differences that would be interesting to study.
We have one more question. How can be a support system to the female business owners in our lives? All these questions are coming from our girl students.
Very nice. How can we be a system to the female business owners? Yeah.
How can they support system?
It's nice. Yes. So first of all, so from a personal perspective, as an individual, I have a lot of respect, even for the ladies who are, even for the gentlemen. But I have a lot of respect. Even I had my grandmother. She was in agriculture, and she sold the potatoes on the market. So now I'm thinking, oh, my grandmother. So I had another grandmother. She had a shop, but even for those small people, I have a lot of respect looking at what they all have to juggle. And what we can do, obviously, is maybe support them by buying from them or by investing our time, if we have knowledge, helping maybe organizations that train women or support women or so. But I do think there has to be some, we have to systematically approach it through education and opening up the debates of entrepreneurship involving, for example, let me give you an example, which I found very interesting. What's her name? I have Alzheimer's sometimes. I forgot the Paul Jones and Sally something. I forgot her family name. They did some research about entrepreneurship courses at university. So they found that the majority of students at business schools in the UK were female. The women were female, where women students were in the majority in most business schools at the time in the UK when they did this. This is maybe like 5-6 years ago. And then they wondered, but they are in the minority in courses about entrepreneurship. Why? And so they looked at the syllabi of the courses and how the syllabi were described, how they described entrepreneurship. And they made they made a content analysis, like of the words used, the expressions, etc. And they found that the language that was deployed did not appeal to women. Why? Because probably it doesn't appeal to men as well. It may be to UK men. So again, it was about if you're a risk taker, if you want to beat the competition, I swear to God, if I am going to ask the women in my courses, are you a risk taker? You want to be competitive? They would be like very calm and sweet, and they would say no. So they don't feel that this is actually something for them. So they don't go into these courses. They don't attend these courses. Whereas, why do we have to deploy this language? Like my grandmother was entrepreneurial. Not everybody wants to have high growth entrepreneurship and be Elon Musk, and some will. So I think there's a lot of role we have to play. We have to be careful how we sell these things. And maybe you in Kerala, you have a different way to speak. I don't know. You don't want to be aggressive in your language. Why would you want to read something like this in a syllabus? Or the books we read, the cases we have at university. I am bringing up a lot of cases from women entrepreneurs, and all the women in my class, also from men. I don't, I'm not going to discriminate against men, but I make sure I bring cases from women entrepreneurs. Then it becomes more and more acceptable, more visible. There's also very little visibility of women. I am just being, I think women are as capable as men, but in India, women are disgraded. And if she's an entrepreneur, then also the society gives her the second grade, and her husband and her father become the master of the business. How can we overcome these comfort zones and bring out our real potentials? I don't know how it is legally in India. I do think legally women and men are in front of the law. They are the same, right?
Yes.
No. Yes. Yeah, you have some countries where it's not the case. They are the same, but then, for example, until very recently in many countries in the Middle East, when a woman wanted to open a bank account, she had to have the accord from her husband. So, like, what if you are, like recently they changed it, 2015 or something, but she needed a signature from her husband. Like, I can't think. You have these people who went to university, they may have been in Oxford or something, and they needed a signature. So you also have legal prescriptions that are difficult. I think, what can we do? I think it's not a journey that is, there are lots of things culturally that, first of all, we have to think about ourselves as women. What do we want to do? Where do we position ourselves? It doesn't mean that you have to, a criticism I always have is about entrepreneurship when we talk about it. Oh, we have to lead to the autonomy of women. They have to break free, etc. And I'm thinking, God, autonomy is something maybe, yes, we all want to be autonomous to a certain extent, but it's a very, how can I tell a person who lives with her family and her friends, I was like, you have to break free from this? I can't. So we have to see how can we as women also in smaller steps understand our capabilities and and in small steps by taking courses, by talking about it, maybe being interested. I mean, it's the issue of gender biases is also with regards to women who want to make career, right? It's also something in the context of employed work. So yeah, I think I have no recipe I can give anybody in this case. I think it's very important to first analyze why we have this, and when we understand the problem, we can start tackling it a little bit without having to do a revolution of all the values that we believe in. That is something.
We would take one last question. Our time is almost up. So what would be your advice to young entrepreneurs?
Yes, I think young entrepreneurs, my advice would be to stay in communication with, let's say, the ecosystem. Seek mentors, look for mentors. Go into, I don't know if your university has a program or something, go and talk to people who are knowledgeable, seek their help. Don't try to do this by yourself. Or, there's a lot that you can learn from a lot of people who have thought about it before and who have experienced it before and who can give you advice. I think that one of the worst things that you can do in anything in life, even whether it's a problem you have with your family or a problem in entrepreneurship, it is not to seek help and to talk to people who are knowledgeable about it. And the second thing is that it is something you can find many people who might be very negative. You find negative people. This is not your problem. You will look for people who treat you with respect and positively, and you seek their advice. If somebody tells you you can't do this, you don't have to believe what people tell you. But I think that technically there is a greater chance for you to grow and to become, to develop a business model that is sustainable, and when you are in contact with a network of people that can support you, when you are involved in an ecosystem.
Thank you for answering all those questions. I'm sure you brought a lot of thought-provoking ideas in their minds. It is evident from those questions.
Libison,
yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah, Malika, if you permit me, can I ask one question with Madam?
100%. Professor Mallikarjunappa, who made our inaugural address in the conference, he wants to talk to you. Yeah. He wants to interact.
Hello, nice to meet you.
Hello, nice to meet you, and good afternoon, Madam. Yes, the finding of women entrepreneurship in Poland. When we see most of the places around Poland, the number of women working in the agricultural fields is more, number of women working in airports is more, and then the stores is more, restaurant is more. But then your finding is that the number of women entrepreneurship in Poland is relatively less, like in India. Of course, India, we can explain, but how do you explain the dichotomy of Poland? Because population-wise also, demography-wise also, Poland has more number of women than men. Yeah. And then the number of women manning most of these enterprises, I have seen myself.
Yeah.
How do you explain this less number of women in Poland?
Well, I think that the numbers of entrepreneurship in Poland already is very low, right? So I think generally in Poland, it's one of the lowest numbers of entrepreneurship in the Global Entrepreneurship Monitor, even for men. So there's certainly an element of culture in Poland that applies to both sexes. And then I would think that there are the elements that I was mentioning before that might make it more complicated additionally to women. Poland is also a very Catholic country, like a very Orthodox Catholic country. I do think, of course, I mean, now we talk about Poland like everybody's the same, like everyone in India is the same. It's not true, right? But in tendency, Poland is a more conservative country. So I assume that the picture and the images they have and the ideas they have about the role of women is very conservative as well, which would probably impact the perception of women being entrepreneurs, etc. But but what I find interesting just is that the European states are not necessarily much more entrepreneurial. Actually, they're very low in entrepreneurship compared to other regions in the world. And I think this might also be, yes, go ahead.
As a researcher, do you find that there is some problem in capturing this data? Because we tend to, define entrepreneurship in terms of the scale. But if you look at the entrepreneurship, let's say in the village India, you have large number of people.
Yeah.
For example, in the agriculture itself,
Yeah.
you would really find large number of women.
Being
And we have
entrepreneur.
not been able to capture that type of data.
Yeah,
Do you
you're right.
think that there is
Yes.
some type of a problem of definition in capturing the numbers? Because
Well,
I see large
yeah.
number of women in the agriculture, and it's predominantly agricultural country.
They are probably, I mean, they are in informal entrepreneurship, I would assume. So what the global entrepreneurship data does, they look at a representative group from each country, which is covering, you know, the exact numbers and the people who are in villages and the people who are female and male, etc. But I completely agree with you. There is an issue when we use quantitative data, we cannot capture the realities of a lot of human beings and and even the different forms of entrepreneurship. Absolutely. I think there's also a very big potential to contribute to literature in this respect, because literature focuses predominantly on formal forms of entrepreneurship. Yes, as you said, many people in the rural India, also women, would not be accounted for. Yeah.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Your voice is so crystal clear.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Very clear voice and then very sweet voice.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Your voice, as I mentioned earlier, such a powerful day. I think even I'm so much inspired of you. I think I want to be an entrepreneur in future. Thank you, ma'am, for inspiring me too. And I think everyone in this session is too much inspired. I think the questions itself is a proof for that.
Very good. I hope you do some research and you will teach, I don't know, most of you at university, right? So in
something, and I want to do. I'm totally inspired from you. Thank you a lot, ma'am.
Thank you so much. Unfortunately, I have to leave your conference because I have a meeting in like half an hour. But I hope to stay in contact with Dr. Lebanon, and maybe there are opportunities in the future to collaborate or to do something.
Yes, okay. We will catch up. We will catch up.
Thank you so much. It was a great pleasure. Thank you very much.
I'd like to welcome for the vote of thanks. I don't know, just please mute.
Bye-bye.
Ma'am, just give me a minute. I want to convey a vote of thanks for your presence. Arunima?
Gratitude is not only the greatest of virtues, but the parent of all others. Good afternoon to one and all, esteemed chief guests, other dignitaries, teachers, scholars, participants, and my dear friends. First of all, let me thank my dear teachers for giving me an opportunity to propose a vote of thanks for this session of our virtual international conference. To begin with, I thank our chief guest, our resourceful person of this session, Professor Dr. Bettina Lynda Bastian, Associate Professor of Entrepreneurship and Innovation. It's really a pleasure to tell you, ma'am, you took us to a world of women entrepreneurship, and it's a great inspiration beyond our textbook knowledge. As a girl, as well as an upcoming woman, I just love this session since it's an inspiration for exploring something different and big in our business world. Our session became a really resourceful one with our interaction with you. Thank you, ma'am, for inspiring us. Next, I express my sincere gratitude to our beloved conference convener, Dr. Lebanon KB, sir. Thank you so much, sir, for providing us with opportunity to shine bright and bring out our talents. Last but not the least, I thank all the participants of this conference without whom this program wouldn't have been a grand success. Once again, I thank all of you on the behalf of Commerce Department, St. Aloysius College. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much. That was very good.
Are you in Germany right now?
Yes, I am in Germany.
So
I am in, but I will go to.
What time is it now? All of this?
I didn't hear. I'm going to the UAE in mid-August. I will be in the UAE for a year, half a year.
What is the time right now over there?
Now it is 10:35. 10:35. It's in the morning here.
In the morning. Okay, right.
Yes, yes. Thank you so much.
We will
Thank
catch
you
up.
all.
We will catch up.
Thank you, Miss Dia. Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.
Okay, we are finally ending up this session officially. And next, we will move on to the next session by 2:30. Until that time, you can have a relative break. We'll join back soon at 2:30. Thank you.